I often refer to the Books of Magra as an ecosystem of modalities. It's just a simple way to talk about the elements of it that are coming together. So, the modalities I'm speaking of, in the simplest terms, are literature, music, images, like the one you see here, or the ones behind me on the wall, and then architecture. I refer to it, the Books of Magra, as an ecosystem because all of these, basically these four areas, are meeting and coming together and creating new things together, while at the same time they might actually flourish in their own respective areas. And when I first started working on the Books of Magra, this idea of it being an ecosystem didn't really arise. At first, it was kind of, well, really, I was overwhelmed by trying to take these different areas and bring them together. And when I did realize that this process for me would involve that, there were things about it that were, like I said, overwhelming because of just the scale of some of those modalities, how they've evolved through human history. But the part about it that was most daunting was how to find my way through that. And what I learned is over time that I had to listen to it. It had to show me what these different modalities coming together was about. And so eventually the idea of ecosystem came up in my awareness of it. And it was a much more soothing and patient way to take in approaching these different areas and bringing them together. Now, these areas of literature, music, images, and architecture are all evolving independently and together as well. So when I come into the space, I basically, from day to day, listen for what wants my attention. And sometimes that could be purely music, sometimes it could be the writing, sometimes it could be architectural, and sometimes it could be images. And this again is in line with that idea of the ecosystem. Each of these areas have their subcategories. The music, for example, is comprised of three different areas. The literary part of it is not only fiction, but it's also has not so much academic, but expository writing. So the explanations of concepts or the mapping out of relationships and whatnot. The images have, in their own respect, touch on a number of different areas. They can be actually literally depicting an image, or they can be a lot more symbolic, or like a translation of feeling or emotion. So there's a poeticism about it, of course. And then architecturally, a lot of the architectural component is driven by sound acoustics. Not completely, but a lot of it is. So these four areas all come together, as I said, in this ecosystem that becomes the Books of Magra. And in working on each of these respective areas, I've, of course, learned more about them, learned more about myself, which is a major piece to this work, as it is, I think, for anyone who endeavors on a creative project or goal or passion. But the other thing that this ecosystem of these areas has demonstrated for me is that you can say that each of them has their own forms of language. And what I'm finding in regarding this as an ecosystem is that these languages are coming together and forming new languages. Which brings me to the last reason why, well, one of the big reasons why it's also referred to as an ecosystem, is because it's meant to be very much, as I've said in other ways, like a garden, that the person who's experiencing it, who's listening to it, who's viewing it, strolls through it, moves through it, and allows it to affect them as it will, for however they are, whenever they are.